If you had asked me a few weeks ago who Yayoi Kusama was, I would not be able to give you an answer. But after researching this artist, I can not only tell you who she is, but her entire life story and the impact she has made in the art world. In this presentation, I will be discussing Yayoi Kusama's history as an artist, the ideas behind her work, the materials that she uses, and how psychology is a big part of her work. I will also be talking about her relationship with her family and other artists and how they have impacted her. Yayoi Kusama's childhood was not a very good one. When she was young, her father had an affair and her mother would force Yayoi to spy on her father and his mistress. This gave her an aversion to sex later in life. Her mother was also physically and emotionally abusive to Yayoi. When she would work on her art as a child, it was taken away from her before she could finish. According to author Alexander Monroe, who wrote a retrospective criticism on Kusama, this sensation still haunts Kusama and might account for why the artist works intensely fast, as if racing to complete a vision before the chance to realize it is torn away. Author Alan Pong-sung Choi of The Ohio State University published an online journal titled Changes in the Status of Japanese Women, which discusses the social and political climate in Japan during the 1920s and 1930s. Choi discusses how the treatment of women changed from being progressive in the 1920s to oppressive by the 1940s. While Japan did make strides in the 20s when it came to women, allowing them to profit off the war by selling war goods and letting them hold their own political meetings, conservative militarists gained political power in the 1930s, basically destroying everything that was benefiting women at the time. This directly relates to Kusama because Japan's oppression of women during the time she wanted to become an artist is the reason why she left for New York. She did not have the support of her family to be a working woman, which was extremely frowned upon, or the opportunity to do so in Japan. Yayoi Kusama would experience violent hallucinations growing up, and she would experience them quite frequently as well. She would use art as a coping mechanism and would often draw and paint what she saw, using her hallucinations as an inspiration for her artwork. For example, during some of her episodes, she would see dots in multiple colors and sizes. These dots became the main idea behind the first art piece of Kusama's I'm going to talk about, the Obliteration Room. The Obliteration Room is an installation piece which consists of a room painted completely white, including furniture. Viewers are given dot stickers that they can stick anywhere in the room however they please. Over time, the room becomes filled with colorful dots. Patterns are also an important style in Kusama's work. She would also experience hallucinations where she saw an object and the shape of the object would repeat itself in her line of vision. The use of patterns can be seen in Aggregation, 1000 Boat Show, where the walls surrounding the actual rowboat is plastered with the image of the rowboat repeatedly. Through my research of Yayoi Kusama, I came to learn that before she became the well-known successful female artist she is today, her work was exploited by other famous artists. In an article by Lonnie Abrams from September of 2018 titled Pop Art Ripoffs, 3 Yayoi Kusama artworks that Warhol, Oldenburg, and Demorest copied in the 60s from ArtSpace, I learned of one of the controversies that surround Yayoi Kusama. Abrams provides the names of the artists and the works they derived from Kusama's ideas. For example, Andy Warhol is known for repeating patterns in his art pieces. Warhol's Cows series was inspired by Kusama's Aggregation, 1000 Boat Show, but when asked where Warhol drew his inspiration, he credited Ivan Karp, an art dealer. When Karp did tell Warhol to use cows as his subject, Warhol did get the pattern idea from Kusama. Yayoi Kusama is probably most well known for her installation pieces known as infinity rooms. Kusama has created a variety of different infinity rooms in her career, and they all represent different ideas. She describes them as kaleidoscopic environments which are three-dimensional representations of her art that involve various patterns. My personal favorite infinity room is the souls of millions of light years away because of how mesmerizing it is. The room is comprised of mirrors and suspended LED lights that flash rhythmically and periodically. Kusama uses her hallucinations as an inspiration for her infinity rooms as well, because they, like the patterns, are repetitions of the same object over and over again. I learned that, like many other artists before her, Kusama suffered from hallucinations and mental illness that often served as the inspiration for her artwork and the messages behind her artwork. Eventually, Kusama sought treatment for her mental illness in an institution, and that is where she learned to create art again. I thought it was important to further my research and learn more about what effects art has on mental health and how it can help someone heal. While continuing my research on art and mental health, I came across an academic journal by author Adrian Sussman titled The Connection Between Mental Illness and Creativity by Google Arts and Culture, which claims that mental illnesses like schizophrenia are more common in artists and can be the reason why they are more creative. I thought this was interesting and never thought to assume that many artists may get their creativity because of a mental illness they suffer from. The journal cites scientific studies on the brain that discuss the importance of the frontal lobe. There has been a vast history of artists who suffer from mental illness and have translated into their work. The most famous example I saw was Vincent van Gogh. One of his most famous works, Starry Night, was created when he was sidelined due to his mental health. Other examples include artists like Claude Monet and his multiple pieces involving his muse who passed away. I learned that artists often let their mental problems manifest through their art, and Kusama wasn't the only one to do so. Like all other artists, however, Kusama has been subject to criticism. New York Times journalist Edward M. Gomez wrote an article on Kusama in 1998, which expresses these critiques. Quote, "How do you classify Yayoi Kusama? Art historians, critiques, and even other artists have found it difficult to categorize the work of the Japanese-born artist whose career flourished in New York during the 1960s, but whose art is not exactly pop, or minimalist, or psychedelic, or abstract expressionist. I personally like how versatile Kusama's pieces are and how she doesn't fit into any one style of art. I also enjoy how she is frequently a part of her own art pieces. Like many artists before her, Kusama wasn't appreciated in her prime. She did not have the support of her family or Japan until she became successful in the United States and they were forced to recognize her accomplishments. While her pieces may be difficult to understand for those who don't suffer from mental illnesses, they are still enjoyable. I believe this is a contributing factor as to why her art is so popular in today's day. Thank you for watching.